and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth in the flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
This is the Jennifer Lopez classic, Mike.
And I'm Colton.
And we are back with a very special episode. It's kind of like our Black History Month episode that we threw together at the last minute because we were so thinking heavily on the anniversary that I was like, wait a second. And I don't even want to cover it up. We basically hit probably what I think is the perfect movie to do, and it was just out of random. We just randomly put it here subconsciously.
Well, yeah, I think Mike picked it a couple months back. We asked him for a pick, and it just kind of worked out this way.
Yes, great job, Mike. Great job.
Listen, that's what can I say?
You're brilliant. Purely brilliant. Just at the top of the episode, we figured to let you know to take a look at our social media, because when this is out, it will have been posted many, many days ago. But I will have a post up, a little video post. I'm not sure if you'll probably see my face, maybe. I don't know. It's a good looking face. I will be showing off some films that you can, end off or celebrate next year, your Black History Month. But really, you can just watch every month of the year.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Black History is every month. So, stuff that stars awesome actors, is directed, written by just amazing Black artists. So, make sure to check that out. But let's get into what we always open with. What have you guys been watching? What have you been reading? What have you been listening to? I don't know. Just what have you been up to? Colton.
Well, kind of like what I've been saying for the past couple of episodes now. I've just been kind of trying to clue up all the Oscar nonsense here. We're in that time of the year where I'm making sure I've seen all the Best Picture nominees, or at least anything with any bit of hype. So yeah, over the last couple of weeks, I watched Drive My Car and Licorice Pizza. I think those were the last two Best Picture nominees that I didn't see. And I thought Drive My Car was pretty great. I mean, it's like a slow burn drama. It's based on a Haruki Murakami short story.
Oh, cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, but it's I don't know how. I
actually probably have that on my shelf. So funny.
Yeah, it's I don't know how it's based on a short story and it's 3 hours long, but it's just it's a really heavy deliberation on grief and guilt and how that affects art, and it sounds kind of boring, but honestly I didn't find it slow at all, and like I said, it's 3 hours long, so if it can hold my...
what you just said sounds fantastic.
Yeah, if it can hold my attention for that long, in a different language, and, let's just say not the best copy because I had to find it online somewhere, yeah, it's pretty great. On the opposite side of that, I saw Paul Thomas Anderson's new movie, Licorice Pizza, and, I don't really want to say it's bad, and I don't want to get into it too much just because... I mean, this isn't really the podcast for it, and I couldn't really get into it, but, at the center of the movie... There's a love story between a 15-year-old boy and a 25-year-old woman, and just...
I was gonna say, all I've heard from my, Twitter people is, did not, hated the central conceit.
Yeah, it's just essentially, there's a lot of movies here over the last couple of years where it's almost I find Hollywood's, normalizing pedophilia to some degree, and it's, even if it's this lighthearted coming-of-age movie, it's just... There was this, just... almost this albatross hanging over it. It's just I couldn't get on its vibe. I was just, there was always something kind of creepy about everything for the movie for me. So
yeah,
it didn't really hit for me. It was technically probably good, but yeah.
I mean, of course, yeah. It's I guess the pedigree. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just saying that, I hope that everybody that jumped down the throat of Call Me by Your Name for the same thing is doing that for this.
Well,
You know?
actually, yeah, I watched Call Me By Your Name there a couple months ago just because one of my friends didn't see it for movie night, and that was kind of like how I felt after watching it this time as well. I never really noticed the first time I saw it, and maybe it's just because of all the Armie Hammer stuff that came out.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like, oh man, it's a shame that like they seem so much difference, like in age and everything, right? It's just, I know it's just been bumping me the wrong way, especially over the last couple of years. I've just been kind of noticing a trend, especially when you watch like these Oscar, bait movies or whatever. I mean, I've seen other stuff, but it's not really too worth getting into. Like I saw Uncharted in theaters, and that was just awful. I wouldn't.
No.
If you're a fan of the video games, I say stay clear. And lastly, I got to give a shout out that we watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new one on Netflix. Won't get into my thoughts here, but obviously you can hear Rowan and I's thoughts on our episode of Now Slaying, which released last weekend. So, I'll point you over there so I don't ramble on too much about what I've been watching. But, yeah, what about you, Mike? What have you been watching? Or what have you been up to?
Well, okay, so I just decided that I was going to reread because I realized the other day that I lost my old copy in one of my moves, which sucks because it was a vintage, beautiful cover copy that has a, insanely, seminal cover of Barker's The Hellbound Heart.
Nice.
So I bought a fresh new copy of it, and just thinking about all the new Hellraiser things that are going to be coming out, and I haven't read it since I was a teenager, so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a whirl and go back and do a reread. To see if I still love it as much as I did back then. And also I just really wanted a short book because I don't have much of attention span right now because it's the dead of winter.
I still gotta read that.
And I'm rewatching some garbage because a friend of mine has gaps in his movie watching thing. So I watched She-Devil starring, the great Meryl Streep the other day because he had never seen it before. So that's always a treat. And I also watched this one called Lisa, which I believe Scream Factory put out a version of 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay.
I don't actually know if it was a theatrical movie because it's very, very, very movie of the week, but probably something that was on Showtime. So it was had a bit of a higher budget from a TV movie and was slightly more intense and had a couple swears in it, but it was essentially a glorified movie of the week. I don't even know how to explain it other than that, but yeah, so it was it was 1990. It was you're kind of teen girl calls people up randomly for prank calls, but then starts getting a crush on this really handsome guy, and it turns out he's a serial killer. Okay. And so it's got that early 90s, late 80s TV movie, gauzy curtains blowing everywhere and saxophone music and tuxedos, and it was trash, but I had such a fun time watching it. So, awesome. You've been watching Oscar movies, I've been watching literally garbage. But you know what? I'm fine with that. It was my friend came over, we had too much to drink, and, just ripped it to shreds and loved it.
Oh, dude, that's, more fun than most Oscar movies anyways.
Exactly. You gotta have your nights where you're watching your Oscar bait, but you also gotta, pepper it with some trash talk and some trash, right?
For sure, yeah.
I'm trying to think since last time we met up. So, like Colton said, we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, make sure to check that episode out to get my thoughts. Listeners can't see, but the lighting on Mike is looking oddly similar to the end credits of it. He's got the lighting going on.
Yep, for sure, the moody lighting, yeah.
He's just missing the techno EDM Texas Chainsaw theme.
Oh, that's exactly what I think.
Some of that in.
Yeah, that's right. We'll include it in. Yeah, and I've been doing a bad job, guys, at logging in my letterbox. I just looked, and I'm like, ooh.
I'm very disappointed. You never even rated the new Texas Chainsaw on there. So
yeah, I know. I'm gonna
shaming you for it.
I'm gonna have to.
I thought that I logged in and saw that you had both recorded it, and there was nothing under yours. So I thought that was a 0. I was like, well, I guess I know what he thought about it, and maybe that is what you think about it. I don't know, but.
You know, we did mention Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode, but I did manage to get out and go see Scream in the theater finally. Loved it.
Mike forgot that he saw that too, I think.
I forgot that I saw that, yes. I don't know how, because it was like one of my favorite things I've seen in a long time, but anyway.
So now, I mean, I feel like the OCD rule is now you guys will have to wait 6 years till we get through all the rest of the sequels before we even touch it on a cast. But I've kind of just been pounding through shows and stuff that I missed. I finally finished The Boys.
Okay.
Which I really thoroughly enjoyed. Me and Exilia are almost done Archive 81, and we've been absolutely loving it. If you like It Follows, Archive 81 is just It Follow vibes. The more it goes into the show, the music is on the same kind of music. It's this weird, creepy feeling the further you get into it. It's just...
That's interesting you say that, because I'm only 2 episodes in, and I don't have those vibes yet. I think it's really polished and really well done. It's just I haven't went back to it for a couple of weeks now.
It gets real weird. There's lots of sci-fi vibes, and it's just, yeah, it's out there. I've started watching Invincible, finally. I kind of missed that when it came out.
I've only heard good things about that.
Yeah, I'm only 2 episodes in, but it's really good. I never read it when it came out, so I didn't really know. And yeah, that's really all I've seen that would probably be noteworthy. Other than that, I will, I feel like I never update anything else anymore. So my OCD brain, here's fun fact for listeners. So when I listen to music, I'll listen to a song, and then I'm I have to listen to everything that this artist has ever put out. And then I might be a month that I only listen to one artist till I'm basically sick of it.
Oh my God.
It's some sort of weird mental thing. So
yeah,
the last couple weeks I went through kind of a Wu-Tang phase.
Nice.
So I went through Method Man's entire discography, and then Old Dirty Bastard's entire discography.
Flawless. Well, okay, the first 10 years anyway.
Yeah. I finished all that up. I'm off the Wu-Tang. I need a little break. So I'm doing some classic hip hop. I'm doing EPMD discography right now. But yeah, that's just a look into my brain. Who knows where I'll go from there? Who knows?
I won't even talk about the sort of garbage music I listen to on the air. So.
I think that wraps that up kind of nicely. You get to listen how crazy I am. Let's get into the event for the evening. Let's start with the trailer, and then we'll be back with that delicious, scrumptious bio.
Do me a favor. Don't scream. Just hear what I've got to say.
On Friday, January 13th, see A Tale from the Crypt that is so terrifying it can only be seen at the movies. Tales from the Crypt presents...
Now you can scream.
Rated R. Starts Friday, January 13th at theaters everywhere.
All right, Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight was released in 1995, directed by Ernest R. Dickerson and written by Ethan Reef, Cyrus Voris, and Mark Bishop. And the story is as follows. Ex-soldier and guardian of an ancient key, Frank Breaker, is a man on the run. For nearly 90 years, he's been pursued by a charming demon known as the Collector, an entity that will stop at nothing to bring about the apocalypse. After an explosive car crash, Frank finds himself taking residence at a nearby church-turned-boarding house, where, with the help of its quirky residents, he plans to face off against the Collector and his band of ghouls once and for all.
First experiences. Is this your first time watching it? Or, are you're coming back to an old friend? We'll start with you this time, Mike.
I guess in a way it's like coming back to an old friend. I'm the one who suggested it eons ago, and I saw this for the first time a million years ago, and I believe this and the other Tales from the Crypt Presents movie, Bordello of Blood, round about the same time.
Listeners don't understand, like, how serious you are about that, because this was definitely, like, cataloged, like, to be, like, our, like, 5th episode, and we just kept pushing it back and back.
Oh, really? I never knew that.
When we mapped out the podcast before we even started the podcast, I know this movie was, like, on our list of movies to do.
Oh, shit.
That and Bordello of Blood.
Yeah.
As, like, a twofer, yeah.
Continue, Mike. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, but no, I was just gonna say, I just, saw it when I was very young and quite enjoyed it, and I've watched it a couple times over the years since then. It's one of those that I always, like, go, oh, goddamn, that was so good. Like, let's all get together soon, and, like, when we watch movies, we'll put that on, Wasted, and I believe we did that once or twice. And, yeah, it's been years, actually, since I've watched it, so it was interesting to revisit it for this episode tonight. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, I'm on the complete opposite. I don't even know if I've heard of this movie before Mike picked it, which is just crazy. But like, I didn't grow up with Tales from the Crypt at all. I've watched some kind of like older, like schlockier, like anthology collections, like a Creep Show or a Creep Show 2, or some of that on Shudder and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. Tales from the Crypt is kind of like a dark spot for me. I don't really know anything about the show or any of the movies it's done or anything. So yeah,
interesting.
I kind of did like a quick Google and I was like, okay, I think it had like a bad critical reception, but a good like online reception, like most horror movies, Yeah, so yeah, exactly. the first time I watched this was over the last couple of days, and it was just a weird thing because usually when I kind of watch a movie for this podcast, I make sure I have the time. I make sure that I'm completely tuned in. And for whatever it was with this movie, I've had some like family stuff going on the last couple of weeks here now. So it was just kind of like maybe my mind was elsewhere. Maybe I was distracted. But I think the movie's only like an hour and a half, maybe hour and 40 minutes. Yeah. And I broke it up into 2 sittings for whatever reason. It's not like a mark on the quality of the movie. It was just like, I don't know, man. I was like drifting off after like 40 minutes or so. And I was like, I like this. I just gotta make sure I'm paying attention. So yeah, I guess the first time I watched it was over yesterday and today. So that's my first experience with Demon Knight. And you, Rowan?
Oh yeah, I'm revisiting a very old friend.
That's what I figured.
It's hard. There's a few movies on the list, but this has got to be in the top 6, 7 movies that I've seen the most in my life.
Man, oh man, that's wild.
I owned this on VHS. I rented
Colton says, having never heard of it before.
Yeah, I rented this all the time. Like, whenever I think about this movie reminds me of all the dingy video rental stores I've ever been in my life.
It's so wild because as a kid, I'd spend like hours in those, obviously, as we probably all did on weekends, right? Going through the shelves, looking at what to rent for like a sleepover or some shit. And like, I know Bordello of Blood, like I know the name, I've heard of that one. But when Mike picked Demon Knight, I was like, oh, okay, this is like some weird trashy pick, I suppose. And then when I saw it was Tales from the Crypt, I was like, oh, okay, never mind. Like, it's an actual pick. I just never heard of it for whatever reason. Anyways, keep going, Rowan.
Yeah, no, like I said, I don't even know. I mean, this came out in 95, so, let's say, and this came out in January, so I'd say by the end of 95, this was probably out on video, early 96, and I would assume I probably saw it around 96.
Shit, all right.
Like I said, like, I remember seeing this really young, and this was like a constant, like, maybe every couple months I would rent this. Yeah, I own the Scream Factory version of it. Yeah, this is a movie that I've seen many, many a time. And I was always, I was trying to think how I would have seen Tales from the Crypt, the show, because I can't remember knowing anyone with HBO, but I definitely was familiar with it. Like, I had seen the show and enjoyed it.
It used to come on in Canada late at night on one of the channels.
I feel like maybe
a little bit spicier. Yeah, one of those like further, I called it like further up in the numbers, because the higher up you got, was like the like more parental guidance they became.
Yeah, it must have been, because like I said, like even this movie I feel like I had seen on TV also, like on Space Channel or something like that late at night.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's my first experiences with it. So we know what we're gonna get into. First and foremost, our favorite scene / favorite kill. Colton, first-time viewer.
Yeah, my favorite kill or favorite, like, just, I guess the shocking part was when the guy gets his head punched through. I don't know what his I don't know what his name was. I don't know what it was, but I was kind of, like I said, I was drifting off a little bit at about that point in the movie. I was just kind of like drifting off, and then this guy gets punched through the head, and I was like, oh, okay, it's this type of movie. You know, I was just like shocked, and then all the like
puppetry.
And all the great like creature effects and whatnot that kind of like come from that point on in the movie, and I don't know, like throwing the guy's head at another person and whatnot. It was just like, I was like, okay, this is supposed to be like fun and like over the top, where up to that point in the movie I wasn't sure 100% where it stood. But yeah, it was just kind of like the shock to my system, and you know what I needed to watch another 10 or 15 minutes before I paused it for the day, I guess. It was the head punch for me. What about yourself, Rowan?
Ooh, this is tough. I like so many.
I feel like
of
you got
these.
them bunched. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
feel free to cheat. It's okay. We won't judge you.
I have a favorite scene that isn't a kill, and then I have a favorite kill. So
okay.
my favorite scene is when we get Billy Zane, the collector, and everyone kind of gets their kind of like dream sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the dream sequence with Jada Pinkett, where it's like the black and white like cloth photo, and you have the hands, like the demon hands, just rubbing it, and it's like the music. Like, I'm already going on about the music. The music is fantastic in that scene. It's like, it reminds me, anyone that listens from Nova Scotia, there used to be this, like, restaurant / bar / like club called Lux, and they aimed, I don't think they were, but they aimed to be, like, high-end New York lounge, like, you'd have a martini, and that's the kind of music that would, like, be playing, is just, like, this weird lounge music.
Yeah.
I just love everything. I love that way that scene shot. I
love the
love
transition into that scene, like where she like peeks under the bed and then comes back up. I was like, oh, damn, that was very well done.
I think that's fantastic. And then for kill, we go in the schlockier section, where I really liked the I guess you'd say towards the ending killer, where we have William Sadler's character, like, the kid's mouth opens and he, like, tongues his heart. I always love that. Like, it's great practical effects, and I think we kind of lucked out that, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but, 2 great practical effect movies in a row that we review.
I was thinking the same thing as I was watching it. Yeah.
Yeah. But Mike, how about you?
Well, unfortunately, I don't really have anything to say because y'all took both of my choices.
No one's choosing Uncle Willie.
Sorry, I love the head scene, and I love the Guess Gene ad 90s dream sequence. So that's all I have. I'm not going to talk about the same thing over again. So I agree with you both. Bravo. Well done. You have superb taste, as usual.
I figured I wanted to kind of, before we get really into the nitty gritty of the movie, we did bring up, like, the Black History Month, that we're celebrating right now. And I thought it'd be important, especially, we talk about, Ernest Dickerson, the director. So, horror fans might know him. He was also the director of Bones with Snoop Dogg. I haven't seen that in ages. I own it. But, that it's considered like a cult classic.
Okay.
More importantly, he is the, anyone that's like, oh, I kind of recognize his name. The cinematographer for Spike Lee. So, like, when you look at what he's done, it's, like, super impressive. Like, just film-wise, like, he did the cinematography for Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, like, we're talking about, like, huge films. Another one of my favorites, Brother from Another Planet, with Joe Morton, which is amazing if you've never seen it. Also directed Juice, which is, like, another one, a film I love, the famous Tupac film. But also, like, some horror chops on the TV side of things. Directed episodes of Tales from the Dark Side, directed some episodes of Dexter. Like he's done a lot of TV work.
Yeah, there's some Walking Dead in there as well, and some of that like Purge TV series that I saw. And of course, an episode of CSI Miami, you know.
Of course, I think he's hit all the procedurals, but yeah, just kind of a very, you know, some would say low key, but like, I mean, definitely an iconic cinematographer, but as a director, definitely has some chops. And, you know, he did like episodes of The Wire and like stuff that's considered like, you know, some of the best television ever. And also a very frequent guest on special feature discs for Scream Factory.
Oh, awesome.
Super interesting. You know, I also wanted to point out this film also, you know, probably one of the really early films that has, you know, a black female final girl. So, you know, it gets even more iconic. And I'm sure throughout this episode, Mike is gonna just rant and rave about Jada.
Oh, she's great.
I love Jada.
Yeah, I never even knew it was Jada as I was watching it, because once again, you know, just like I know what she looks like now, but yeah.
She was a little baby. This was her early career.
Ernest Dickerson said he casted her because this was right after she was in Menace to Society.
Oh, so good.
Gotcha.
Fuck.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I need her. She was actually supposed to be the main lead, and then they switched it.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, we'll get into all that a little later. So, yeah, I just had to give that blurb, like, Ernest Dickerson, hands up.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of his work, but, you know, off the mic before the show started, I actually didn't even know anything about him. Rowan was like, dude, you've definitely seen some of his shit. Like, it's like impossible. I was like, man, yeah, I never know. I never knew anything about him, so... I've seen some of his work as well, just I didn't recognize the name. So
yeah, let's get in a little more in the nitty gritty on this tasty little film. I mean, we already kind of talked about it. I want to talk about the practical effects, like first and foremost.
Go for it. I was shocked by them. I once again, I don't know what I was expecting going into this. I kind of figured it'd be pretty like low budget or, you know, just kind of corny or whatnot. But I was like, damn, these special effects they're excellent. There's a lot of them too. Like there's lots of puppetry, lots of like full body costumes, you know, lots of makeup. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and I know Ernest Dickerson, and I can't think of who did the special effects stuff on the film. I know on the Scream Factory disc, they talked about that this wasn't the original design for the demons. They were going to be a lot more animatronic, whereas once they were given the budget, they were kind of like, well, we're gonna have to tone down a little bit of what we planned.
Mm-hmm.
So they really did, you know, he talked about that they just casted like a lot of skinny people, and he was just like, and then put like a little bit of prosthetic work on them.
Yeah, there was a scene I think where they were climbing up the stairs, probably in the last half of the movie. And as I watched them, I was like, man, like they're so like slim. And I was like, did they get like children in like the prosthetics for it, or did they just get like gymnasts or something, you know? Because it was just like, they were very tiny, you know?
This is like, I can't think of another horror movie that does a demon better than this movie. I always compare any sort of demon character work to this movie. Like I said, I watched this movie all the time when I was younger. And that's just like how iconic these effects were, like to my young brain. And I'm always surprised every rewatch, like how well that holds up.
You must not have saw the Annabelle movies, you know, that incredible scary demon inside of the doll.
Yeah, I mean, if only this could be as good as
Raggedy
Annabelle.
Raggedy Annabelle.
There's so much to start with this film, and, you know, the practical effects are great. Like I said, even Exilia, I wouldn't say Exilia was watching this with me, but she was, like, sitting beside me, just doing whatever. Even, like, a half hour into it, Exilia was like, man, this is a really good soundtrack. She's like, the music's, like, actually really good.
It kicks off with Hey Man, Nice Shot by Filter, which is a mood.
Oh, yeah.
That, like, to me, just, you know, sets the tone for the rest of the movie.
I love how this movie starts off, too, with, like, the faux horror movie opening, where it's, like, kind of like this horny horror movie that, like, you've seen a million times.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, man, this is, like, some grade A cheese. And then I love that like it wound up being that like the Crypt Keeper like went Hollywood and he was like shooting a movie, and I was like, okay, this is really good, like really meta. It was kind of like how I expected Malignant to begin a couple months ago when we were talking about it, with like a cheesy movie, and then it pulls out and this is the real movie. This actually pulls out and then it has a better movie. So I was like, I love the intro of this. Like it was awesome. And then obviously the frame narrative of that comes back at the end, and it's like silly as well. It's good shit, man. It's really good.
Yeah, and then it pulls out and it's like, oh look, there's John Larroquette. Speaking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's exactly why I always have loved Tales from the Crypt. Like you said, the framing of the intro and the outro, like, it's always really funny. And I think it's kind of, it's interesting because even if you do a little bit of reading into this, like, so this was just like a spec script that had nothing to do with Tales from the Crypt. And it had floated around for like 6, 7, 8 years. Basically, there's so much background to, how this became, a Tales from the Crypt movie, how it became the first one. I know it's at one point this was supposed to be actually a second movie in a trilogy. The original VHS cuts of this at the end have the Crypt Keeper announcing the next movie.
Oh, really?
Which never actually was, made.
Yeah, as I was watching this, I kind of felt that. Like, it felt like there was a lot of world building and lore behind what I was watching that, like, they kept slipping in there about, like, I don't know, the 7 keys or, the blood of Jesus Christ being in this key or, like, the different people that carried it throughout the ages and whatnot, that I was like, all right, this is just like a little like info dump, like a 5-minute info dump in this movie that is just kind of like, oh, you can latch onto it and kind of dig into it and really get like all the details, or you can just kind of ignore it, And as I was watching, I was like, man, there's a lot of lore in this. Like, it's not like your regular, schlocky throwaway horror movie. Like there's a lot of effort
for an hour and a half movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. So yeah, I get that completely.
The key was supposed to be one of the tie-ins, which, I'm not sure, Colton, if you've ever seen Bordello of Blood.
I haven't, no.
But the key does make an appearance in Bordello of Blood, although by that time, there was no tie other than it just made an appearance. There was no other tie-in.
And was it more like an Easter egg, or is it like kind of like...
Yeah, it was more of an Easter egg by Bordello of Blood. But so, I had to bring it up on my phone. So, Dead Easy was the name of the movie the Crypt Keeper announces in a post-credit scene.
Okay.
The Scream Factory Blu-ray actually, they omitted it, and most of, like, the DVD release and stuff, they kind of just got rid of that, just because they, they didn't want it in the film anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just kind of interesting. The third film was supposed to be called Body Count, but I thought Dead Easy sounded kind of cool. I had read online that it was supposed to be a zombie movie set in New Orleans.
Ooh, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, I think I would have liked to see that, yeah.
This movie has so much background, so interesting, and where I said it was kind of a spec script, they fit it with Tales from the Crypt because they thought it had the right, like, comedy that Tales from the Crypt has as a show. Also, and I know Mike always loves these, the directors that were attached to it are, like, nuts. Like, super nuts. I brought up on my phone here. So, Mary Lambert was supposed to direct it.
Love her.
Director of Pet Sematary.
Oh, shit. All right.
And several groundbreaking Madonna music videos, but anyway.
She was the one that wanted Breaker in the film to actually be cast as a black actor, and they had scrapped her reading of the script. Tom Holland, so the director of Child's Play, this was going to be the film that he was going to direct also. Mark Carducci, who is the screenwriter of Pumpkinhead, was attached to this.
Another movie with like great practical effects.
Yeah. And then of course, when you want something made quickly, made cheaply, who do you go to? They went to Charles Band at Full Moon Entertainment, and he couldn't get it done how they wanted it done, and probably for the best. I mean, I love Puppet Master, I love all that stuff, but I mean, his films are far more low budget than this. So I don't think he would have been able to, do it justice. And then the only other real thing I wanted to say, just as a background of interest for people, was original script. No demons, even though it was called Demon Night. They didn't think they were gonna have.
I was gonna say it's the Troll 2 of the Tales from the Crypt cinematic universe. They got the title and they got none of it in there.
They didn't think they were gonna have money to do all the practical effects. So the original idea was that the collector was gonna be a Bible salesman, but he'd have a legion of black suit, black sunglasses, Men in Black looking guys.
Okay, yeah.
And they would actually be demons, but they'd always be like humans. And that was gonna be like the army. Yeah, but then they got some money and said, no, let's not do that. I'm just rambling on, because as you can tell, I have many fond memories of this and love everything about this. Billy Zane. I really want to talk about Billy Zane.
The Zanes in general. Definitely Billy. What a man. What a mighty good man.
Iconic.
Yeah, he's really good in this. Yeah.
He says this is his favorite role of his entire career.
You can just tell that he's like
chew up the scenery.
Exactly. Yeah. It must have been so fun.
He talks about in a lot of interviews that Ernest Dickerson was really big on improv and letting the actors do what they wanted to do. And he said that a lot of the choices for this character were Billy Zane just being like, I want to go wild with it.
Yeah, this seems like the perfect movie for improv as well. That's what I'm saying, where it's kind of just a fun movie to act in and a fun movie to watch, where I can definitely see a lot of lines being improv or even body language and whatnot. I bet it was a very loose set, so I could definitely see why actors would love it.
What I'm curious to know is, because when I watch it, I have a very specific idea in my mind of another film that inspired him for the role. And I'm curious if you guys had the same thoughts on it.
I got some, and this, you might not be going in this direction, I got some Halloween Seasons of the Witch vibes from him for whatever reason. I think it was just the pale, pasty, watching people, but that's off the top of my head. But
and I was gonna say, this isn't fair, because if you're a horror fan, sit down now, because we're gonna air out Colton's dirty laundry.
Oh no.
We'll see if Mike agrees. I got hard Michael Keaton Beetlejuice vibes.
100%.
Oh, damn it, guys. Absolutely. I haven't seen Beetlejuice.
Colton, never seen Beetlejuice.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's gonna be a pick someday. But hardcore, especially the scene where Billy Zane, after they have the confrontation with the cops, and he goes outside, and he does he's impatient and he's stamping on the ground and he's yelling.
It's full body acting, right?
Yeah, but he does the cowboy impression and then he's yelling and stuff.
Oh no,
all it reminds me of is the iconic Beetlejuice scene where Beetlejuice is having the flip out at the graveyard because he just wants them to hire him. And I was like, there's no way this isn't an inspiration.
Yeah, for me it was just kind of the robotic walking and pacing and how he's a lot more quiet and understated in the first when he's kind of mysterious, right, where the movie's trying to make you think that William Sadler's character is the demon or whatever, it's trying to do that for a little bit when he gets to the the house or the church or whatever, and then it's oh, okay, obviously it was Billy Zane, right?
Like I said, Billy Zane, just iconic.
But I love the contrast between him and Jada, because he is so very obviously relishing in his glee just this absolute pure camp, and she just has this intensity.
Oh yeah.
And it works so well because the movie kind of zigzags back and forth at any given fucking second between those two things. It goes from deadly serious 1 second to absolute just a camp fest the next, and I feel the two of them were the grounds of each pole.
Yeah, there's lots of
it somehow worked. It's not they were doing two different movies. Sometimes you'll see that you'll be you'll watch one actor in a movie, especially if it's a really, really bad movie, playing it one way and another actor playing it another way, and it's just how did you even get this to work? But I feel just the two of them doing that two opposite I mean, obviously the way it was written was that this character was like humorous and campy, and obviously if he was encouraging, improv and stuff, I absolutely thought that was the heart of the movie, was that contrast.
Yeah, the comedy like doesn't undercut kind of like the earnestness or like how they're treating the world of the movie still serious. Like the jokes and like, the funny aspects of the movie aren't at a detriment to kind of like the rest of the world and the vibe, right? It's just they're just working in tandem with one another.
Exactly. That's a hard line to kind of like walk.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah.
I just feel like they did such a good job with it. And I mean, listen, I love me some camp and I love me some dead seriousness. So
those mixed together is just incredible.
And Jada, like, just, oh my God, Jada, fucking young Jada, like, it's just, it was his charisma.
She's great in this, because I mean, and Mike's gonna probably quit the podcast, but I am not a Jada Pinkett fan, like, at all.
A divorce.
I'm not, I've never been a fan of, like, her acting or what she's in.
I think she's so amazing.
I know you do, I know.
Like...
But I love her in this. I think she's awesome. She's like this badass like action star in it. And cause I think it would have been really easy to, have like Breaker as, the Terminator of the movie and kind of have all the action centered mostly around him, which I always think it's cool because when I watch this, he's almost just like a background character to everyone else's story. Right?
Yeah.
He's just kind of there to give you those like exposition dumps and all that kind of stuff, which also, side note, I actually don't mind in this. I hate when we're dumped exposition, but I think works pretty well in this.
It was just so shocking to me, like when it cuts back to like the biblical times and you see the 3 men on the cross and shit, and I was like, oh my God, we're flashing back like far.
Yeah.
We're not flashing back just like 20 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if
centuries here.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you guys have seen The Nun, like that.
No, I never saw it.
So in that movie, it winds up being like a necklace or a key with the blood of Jesus Christ in it as well that they use to like defeat the demon. And I'm like, ooh, interesting. Like I've seen 2 movies now with like that plot device, right? So as I was watching
That's so bizarre.
Yeah, I was watching it.
Odds?
Yeah, I was just like, oh man, like this was much better than The Nun. So that was good at least.
But I think like, we talked about Billy Zane and Jada Pinkett, but like this entire cast is like low key fire.
Oh, God, absolutely.
Thomas Hayden Church in it is like kind of funny. Like I haven't seen him in a lot of movies. I think it's like Spider-Man 3 and maybe like a couple of other things. But as I was watching this,
Sideways, come on, y'all, Sideways.
I was like, holy shit, man, that's Sandman from Spider-Man 3, and honestly, he kind of just looks the same, other than like he has long hair in this. So
he looked a little bit greasier, right? Like
yeah.
But like I thought he was fantastic. Charles Flesher, who plays Wally, I thought he did a great job. Probably not a household name, but he's the voice of Roger Rabbit.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but like I thought he was great. The disgruntled postal worker, I bought it. I just loved the scene where CCH Pounder, like they find the mailbag.
Yeah, it's like, oh look, some Uzis.
Yeah, the character that we all wanted to be sympathetic with actually is just crazy.
Yeah, well that's what I was gonna say. I had a note from earlier in the movie where I think he's like lusting after the prostitute or sex worker woman is Cordelia.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was kind of like, oh, I hope like something happens between them, and then it winds up being that he's just crazy. I was like, oh, all right, maybe she was making the right decisions there.
One of the interviews I saw with the writers, they said that Wally was actually considered for when they were thinking about characters that would actually become the survivor.
Oh man, no. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do it, but they basically said that it was a back and forth because they were like, Wally's really, you know, the only person that doesn't get changed or like, you know, until he dies. Like he doesn't buy into the demon, to the collector.
Yeah.
So they had toyed with it, but yeah, I'm glad they didn't go that route. And then yeah, Mike already said it, but I just want to say CCH Pounder. This is like my all-time favorite role she's in.
And that woman has a fucking catalog. Like,
oh, like incredible catalog.
Yeah.
After I saw the special features, like, more power to her. I thought that even like the special effects people and like Ernest Dickerson, like they felt so bad because they were like, we casted her, and then we were like, yeah, we got to put a fat suit on you. And like, she didn't know that.
Oh yeah, for the arm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they basically just said because the arm wouldn't have looked good if they, because they were like, she's like so like physically fit and stuff that they were like, just like we had to like fatten her up so it would look okay.
Yeah, I was watching for it, and it's all well done. They got her in like loose fitting clothes, like flowy.
Yeah,
clothes,
she's
right,
like wearing a muumuu.
Yeah, it's well done.
And then of course the legend, R.I.P. Dick Miller, Wally.
He has quite the dream in the movie. You know, it's
Uncle Willie. You know, icon, Gremlins. I always forget he's the guy from Gremlins. Like, that's how sad my life is most people are like, hey, it's the guy from Gremlins. And I'm like, hey, it's the guy from Demon Knight.
No, I think your priorities are just slightly
skewed,
adjusted to a different wavelength, maybe we'll say.
And I'm the guy who's like, oh, I've seen both of those movies precisely once. So do not remember Dick Miller.
He's an icon though. He's been in like so many like Corman movies, and I know like he was like one of the main people that Ernest Dickerson went after, who he thought for sure, he was like, there's no way this guy's gonna do my movie. And then Dick Miller, I saw a pretty funny interview with him where he talked about, he's like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure I just really need the money. And he like signed on. He had no idea what the movie was. He's like, I just was like, sure, yeah, pay me, I'll do it. And then, you know, he talks about like, I was actually impressed. It's actually him in the prosthetics, like when he turns into a demon.
Yeah.
And they talked about like, you know, how much he hated it just because he's like this old school actor, and he just absolutely hated it.
Yeah, I kind of want to mention like some of the weirder aspects of the movie. To me, it's like the hands with the stars on them where they're like filling in, and every single time a star fills, then you hear like it was like a roar of a jaguar or something every single time. I was like kind of laughing when I was seeing that.
I was just gonna say, until you said it, I'd never really noticed that, but now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, there's always that roar.
I was like, what big cat is that every single time a star filled? And I was like, is that a tiger? Is it a lion? What is it? Might be a cheetah. I don't know, man, but it's a weird roar. I wonder how they settled on destroying the eyes for the demons. It was an interesting choice. And there's a part where like the head gets blown off one, I think, and you can see the eyes flying through the air. They're like destroyed, and I'm like, all right, like they're really committed to this eye idea for sure.
This idea, if you will.
No, Mike.
Okay, I'm leaving. Bye, divorce.
I like it. Mike hit with those Tales from the Crypt cheesy puns.
Sorry, I just completely derailed everybody.
Well, I was just kind of talking about some of the weirder like lore choices that as a first-time viewer when I was watching it, I was just like, man, this is interesting shit. Like I said, it's way more fleshed out than I was expecting. And I certainly wasn't expecting, what is his name, Frank or whatever, to be dead by the end of the movie, I guess. Like, because they were just positioning him as like the boring protagonist where everyone around him is like far more interesting. And I mean, there's hundreds of movies that do that, right? And he just survives till the end. But this, like, where they actually kill him off and then have Geraldine, or I forget her name, but when she like takes up the mantle, I was like, man, that's a solid ending. Like, I really like the ending sequence with like the bus and all that too. Like, we haven't talked about that yet, but that's a pretty neat little scene. I like where she collects his blood and, you know, does, you know, kind of like the barrier over the door of the bus. You know, it's cool shit, man. I was like, this is a cool world. I thoroughly enjoyed like most of what they were developing here, even if it was a bit weird sometimes with the shitty CGI like red doors and, you know, blocking the demons out and whatnot. I was like, man, they really went all out for it.
But I mean, there was not as much of that, like you said, as there could have been.
Oh, for sure.
So for something in the mid 90s that was, you know, probably very light on the budget, it could have been a lot worse.
It was tastefully done, yeah. Like, it was in there and it was funny and it was a bit cheesy, but like it kind of fit in the vibe with the movie, and where they treated it with kind of like reverence, like every single time it would happen, or with respect. It was like, okay, it's a cheesy effect or whatever, or a low budget effect, but the way everyone reacted to it kind of like sold it for me.
Yeah.
I just think they took a lot of big swings, like in general, that just kind of really paid off. Like you said, like I agree with the eye thing. Like I'd be curious how they came up with that, but it worked for like some great practical effect gags, so absolutely loved that. I mean, also, you know, I know a big worry with this film is that, so Tales from the Crypt, I mean, if anyone's familiar with them knows, like, originally they're an EC comic, you know, from the 50s. You know, one of the big worries is that if you've ever read the comics, so all the comics are like morality tales.
Okay.
And in the show, like all of the episodes are morality tales. So, you know, that was kind of a big worry, I know, with this, where they were like, this isn't really a morality tale whatsoever. It still pays off. Like, I think they did enough to include it in that Tales from the Crypt world. I love rewatching this because I was kind of thinking that I didn't overly like it, but I this viewing I enjoyed, like the tying the comics directly in with the movie.
Where the kid was reading them, you mean?
Yeah, and we're seeing the story unfold before it happens in the comic.
That was neat. Yeah, I like that.
I'll go out on a limb and say probably a better use of comic books in a horror movie than Nightmare on Elm Street.
I fucking knew you were going to say that, and we're just going to get divorced. I'm done.
I'm just
Multiple
saying.
hot takes this episode, yeah.
Yeah, it's your diarrhea takes are real coming out here.
Whatever, man. Whatever.
No, I get it, though, because it's, like, Tales from the Crypt in general is very, like, winky and self-aware, so I really enjoyed that they kept that element of it in the movie to, like, marry it to the, like, franchise that is presenting it. You know what I mean? Even if, again, like you said, it was a spec script or whatever. It was a cute moment. I just loved the little, you know, self-aware, like, winks. You know, that's very 90s. That's, you know, this is like the era of like the screams and everything start coming out when they're like, oh, well, you know, we might as well acknowledge what we're doing. And
yeah, they're like self-referential.
Hope the audience, like,
right? It's like, it's
exactly,
just, it's right in the era where it starts to be like, well, horror movies are popular enough that when you're making a horror movie, you have to kind of acknowledge that other horror movies exist. This can't be like the only horrific thing to have ever happened in this universe, you know? Like,
exactly.
I feel like the more I sit here and I think about the film, I feel like we really missed out on this episode with one of us not picking our favorite scene being CCH Pounder when Billy Zane brings the hand up and then he's like, is that a yes? And she's like, no, I'm giving you the finger.
Man.
My intro was going to be that I was the disembodied arm on a pillow. So, again, missed opportunities. So many missed opportunities. Trains leaving all the stations.
I was going to say, too, like, you know, and we just, you know, talked about, you know, it being self-referential and having the funny quips and all that kind of stuff. But I think what really, really makes it work is, like, with that and the practical effects being so good, like, I think the visuals, there's a lot of visuals in it that are actually, like, pretty scary. Like, they're pretty horrifying. Like, I love, during, you know, when we're getting the whole Genesis speech, and then instead of, you know, trying to do some, you know, going back to Jesus time like we do with the crucifixions, that they just, like, focus on the demons taking over this hotel, like the bottom floor, but it's really dark and you're just kind of seeing close-ups of their face, which you get to see the great detail. Like, a lot of them have, like, nose rings and, you know, kind of, I almost, like, thought it looked very, like, tribal, very, you know, had this, like, tribal look. A lot of them had, like, big earrings, like, stuff like that. Just kind of a awesome look, which I'm wondering if it kind of hung on from pass script. I know Ernest Dickerson had originally talked about wanting to use the film as an analogy of like the demons being slaves, and he wanted it to have to do with like this history. I think it does have some like truly terrifying things in it. It scared me. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I mean, there was lots of scary stuff about it, that's for fucking sure. Listen, like, to me, I'm also, like, terrified by the less demonic aspects, like, for example, when they're kind of, like, essentially taking advantage of Geraldine being dependent on that job as, a way to stay out of jail, and I thought there was like little threads there that it would have been interesting if they'd pulled at a little bit more.
Yeah.
That she's got this like mysterious background, and I kind of wish that they had done another movie because I would like to get a bit more of her character.
Yeah, she was one of the more interesting characters for me as well when I was watching, for sure. So
yeah. Like everybody in it was, even though like kind of throwaway characters, all the cannon fodder, like all the actors obviously were talented and charming in certain ways, and had more charisma than most of the like cannon fodder of movies at the time. But like, holy cow, like she just really did such an amazing job. Obviously, as did like Billy and everybody, but I'm just like, there was such a like fucking human heart beating in her.
Yeah.
The human heart key thing. And I thought that, that undercurrent sort of got pushed away, but like, like how dependent people are on like, oh, you have to behave this certain way, or and like there's that threat of like, I'm gonna send you back to jail, like if it wasn't for me, you better be grateful. And I think that that's kind of like the socially terrifying part of that movie, honestly. Like, yeah, the practical effects and everything, but
yeah. And I was gonna say, I feel that's unfortunately studio interference. Like, I feel like Ernest Dickerson probably wanted this to have a lot more like serious undertones and stuff. And once you have the studio, and especially because the studio's, trying to act on behalf of the franchise and the namesake, they're like, this has got to be light, it's got to be funny. I will say, I'd love to see more of this story. Plus, like, I don't know, man, that the new collector I thought looked badass. I wanted to know about him.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yep, the collector coming in at the end, and her on the bus. I just like that scene so much because it showcases like how smart of a final girl she is, and like how much she understands like what happened on in the world, and like even though the threat is destroyed for now, like she's smart enough to know that another threat's gonna be coming. And I really like the way that wraps up. Like, it was a really cool ending, and then with him like whistling as well, which I read is the Tales from the Crypt theme. He's whistling or whatever. But but for me, I was just like, okay, cool. He's just he's on this like lonely road, like pursuing, right, following. I really enjoyed it.
And, like, she doesn't even get a, like, break to recover from that, like, trauma. It's like she literally has to, like, pick up the mantle and immediately just, like, well, here we go. Like, this is reality now.
I was gonna say, this is where, obviously I said how much I watch this movie. Sorry to all the listeners, because you've basically just been listening to me ranting and loving and...
Yeah, clearly you have a lot more to say about it than I do, and you just
not letting these guys talk about it. But I do have one nitpick. I do have a nitpick. So my nitpick in it, and I mean, it's just very, I don't know if it's considered a nitpick, but I think there's a real missed opportunity with the cat. I feel like we could have got a Thing-esque cat demon thing going on. There were so many times every time I watch this movie where I just want the cat to be a demon one of the times, and like I said, I wanted like something with a Thing, like the cat, the break apart, or like just something ridiculous. And you
wanted to piss off most audiences, is what you wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, essentially,
as usual,
and I get it. You don't want to. Most people don't want to go that far. They don't want to hurt the dog. They don't want to hurt the cat. No. But I felt it was a missed opportunity, guys. Like,
I could see that it could have fit. Yeah. Definitely could have fit in there,
especially if it was like kind of silly looking. It could have been like fun. And
is it Reanimator where they bring back the cat? I think it's Reanimator. Yeah, I mean,
Reanimator.
But I mean, I think in Reanimator it brings back the cat, and it's like a pretty like silly like reanimation. So they probably could have did something similar to that in this.
I wanted to say that, again, it's been years since I've seen Bordello of Blood either, so I'm just going like based on my memory, but I feel like this probably does a better job of this than Bordello of Blood, but I really liked, Colton, you obviously are not going to, sort of like be able to contribute to this at all. I just want to make the comment that I really like how they, even though, again, this was something that they inserted into like Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
As it presents, they obviously filmed it to mimic the like aesthetic of a lot of Tales from the Crypt episodes. Like, I thought that the camera work and the lighting and all of that was, and using the moody metal song at the beginning and all throughout was just very much like a really nice, they gave it the texture of a Tales from the Crypt episode, like all the kind of wonky camera angles and like just the way that they used like the lighting and like the really dark area and stuff. It screamed Tales from the Crypt, and I really loved that. I thought that was like kind of a level of reverence and detail that they could have just slapped the name on it and not tried to like actually, other than giving it that framing device, tried to actually have it tie in. And that's such a small thing, but like to me, it really, as someone who, watched a lot of episodes of that growing up on TV late at night, like I feel that aesthetic in my bones. So when I was rewatching this, I was like, man, they really nailed the like the lighting and the camera work and stuff. It really makes me feel like I'm in a Tales from the Crypt episode, which I think is the sign of a job well done.
As someone that has watched Bordello of Blood recently far too many times, to me, I think most people, would say this did a better job than Bordello of Blood. I mean, this, I think, did moderately successful. Like, I think these guys had like a 12 million budget and they did like 21 or 22 million in box office. Yeah. I feel like this was probably a big V8 like home video.
Oh, it was definitely like a as y'all mentioned earlier, it was definitely like a sleepover watch. I mean, and especially since, as Tales from the Crypt did with being essentially PG-13 horror, it's like horror that's kind of like intense and over the top, but actually is really just like you could show it on any, except for like the few tits and stuff you could
that was the
show it to any like youngster, really.
It was like, okay, this is like the HBO, I guess. There's boobs.
They're like, we gotta throw that in to justify it being on at like 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday or whatever. And
this did get cable plays. I read that all they did was that they did shoot an alternate scene of Uncle Willie's Dream where they all had bikinis on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they just replaced it with that, essentially. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was gonna say, like, and I'm sure at some point, Bordello of Blood's kind of always been on my list to pick at some point to talk about. But I mean, Bordello of the Blood, the blood of the blood
of the Bordello.
Bordello of Blood, it went way hammier. It was a lot more comedy than this, and it was a lot more like kind of cheesy comedy, and not, they went a little less on the horror, I think, and it was more on the comedy. Like, it was still fairly gory, but it was way funnier. And we're talking about, a groan, but this was the Dennis Miller heyday.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
So it had that, it was shaped around Dennis Miller's, if you remember him. Persona and stuff from then, before he was, on Carlson Tucker crazy, the Saturday Night Live days, which is still groan worthy. But like, I think this was way more successful at doing Tales from the Crypt than that. Yeah. All right, well, if you guys are comfortable, I say, we get that pussy off the table and get to rating this. So if you are new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, and slay. We will start with Mike.
Well, I am honored. No, I'm honored to give it a yay. I'm not, in my memory, it was always a slay, but it's very much a movie that, like, a young person would watch and thoroughly enjoy and latch onto, I think, for the reasons that we just spoke about a minute ago, that it's not too scary. It's not too violent. Like, it's not too sexual. There's like kind of sprinkles of all that, but it's very much a like something you could see on TV if you stayed up past your bedtime sort of thing. There's so much about it that I really enjoyed, and I thought the acting was great. Even though it clearly didn't have the biggest budget, you know, I really liked what they did with the camera work and the lighting, and it still looked like a TV show that you would see. So, like, they did such a good job at, like, capturing the spirit and the aesthetic of Tales from the Crypt. The only thing keeping it from being a sleigh for me is that it does, even though, again, as you said, it wasn't written to be Tales from the Crypt, it sort of seems like it could have been a two-parter Tales from the Crypt episode. And to me, even though it's not a long movie, it almost seems like it's a little bit padded out for what it is. Like, I feel like it literally would have been like, because I feel like that show, I can't remember, I haven't seen it in a while, I feel like it's half-hour episodes. I feel like that would be a nice two-parter at the end of a season. You know, they could do like a really good lead up to where he comes in and like does this head decapitation thing, which was one of the only parts that was a bit over the top and maybe too scary for a youngster. But and then have the second part be the, oh shit, everyone's dying, let's get the hell out of here. But that said, it doesn't drag. Like, it's not a long movie, and the slight feeling here and there that it is a two-parter episode padded out by an extra, like, 20 minutes it's not a slam on it, because it's still engaging and charming and funny and just aesthetically well done, and it still zips along. So I guess my point was, after all these years watching it again, I was sort of looking for, you know, what am I going to have a quibble with? And it was really just that, but it's just minor, honestly. I think it's still an absolute yay, and I look forward to showing it to more people who haven't seen it, to be honest. Yeah. What about y'all? What about you, bro? Colton?
Yeah, it's similar for me, too. I think it's a solid yay. I think if I kind of watch it with a group of friends, or if I watch it maybe over Discord with that horror movie, you know, bi-weekly or once-a-month movie with a group of people, I may have enjoyed it a little bit more. Like I said, I was starting to doze off about midway through, and it winds up being like, okay, is that just me because I got a lot on my mind, or is that like part of the movie's fault, or like what is it? I feel like a sleigh to me, like no matter what it is, it'll keep me entertained. It'll make sure I'm awake. Like, I'll get through it, no problem. Where for this, like I said, I don't even know if it's a fault of the movie, but there was just like a certain point about 40 minutes in where I was kind of lulled and just starting to doze off a little bit. So I had to pause it, you know, rewind a little bit and come back again today. So yeah, I think it's solid. It surprised me. Like, I thought all the characters were pretty well fleshed out to have like their own archetypes. I thought the special effects and the practical effects really surprised me, and like I said, I like the ending a lot. I think the ending is like, you know, it's just a very strong moment to end on, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the ending, especially since I was surprised, right, that the main guy, you know, Frank Breaker or whatever, got killed off, right? I was like, okay, that's, you know, it surprised me. I wasn't expecting it, especially for a movie for its time. So yeah, it's a solid yay for me as well.
Yeah, so this is tough.
Drum roll.
You gotta go with a sleigh, man. With how much you've been talking about this movie, I can't believe you'd give it anything else, but go for it.
Yeah, I'm really torn. So I fully plan to give it a sleigh. Like this, I hold this movie so near and dear and close to my heart. But you know what? I think a strong yay is where it's at.
Okay.
For the coveted movies that get sleighs, the Laura Mars, No, I don't think I gave Laura Mars
the first 40 movies you guys reviewed, you know,
all
those
right.
coveted sleighs by Rowan.
Well, let's
You're getting red here.
Let's say my sleighs have evolved, maybe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we slayed
refined
everything.
your taste.
The evolution of sleigh.
I'm trying to keep the sleighs for really that, like, creme de la creme. And this is the creme de la creme of, like, trash for me.
This is the tagline right there.
Yeah, put that on Blu-ray.
This is like the ultimate VHS movie to me. Like, that's good. That's not just like I'm watching because it's so bad. Like, this is good. Truth to the audience. Like, I literally watched this probably less than 30 days ago, like on my own accord.
Okay.
And then today I was like, oh shit, yeah, I gotta rewatch that movie that I just watched.
Oh shucks, I gotta watch it again.
I wasn't even excited because I was like, I literally just watched it. And then like I'm watching, and I was like, I'm gonna have to, make sure I stay awake, all that. Like, I just saw it. No, it's just as good, even if you see it, a couple days before. It's fun. Billy Zane. That's all. I rate this Billy Zane. Yeah, I'll give it a strong A2. I think that's fair. It's definitely if you have friends over, like, watch this.
That's what I was missing, I think. Yeah.
I think it'd be a riot with friends, like 100%. Awesome music, awesome practical effects.
A communal experience, yeah.
Just watch it. So, we gave our opinions on what we rated it, and we went on Instagram and all that good stuff and asked what you thought. And I think we had one answer, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Demon Knight didn't get the love I really wanted. I expected everybody to come through for me and be like, all-time classic, move over Exorcist, move over everything. But no, we got, his username is Come to Think of It.
Oh my god, is this spelled C-U-M?
No, I bet you wish it was.
Oh god.
One word, and it just says, excellent, exclamation mark. So,
right.
He's
big fan.
Big fan. He's in my book, the ultimate taste. So, he knows what's up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this week, no horrific hotline messages. You guys weren't feeling Demon Knight.
We put out the call, but no one called in and left us a voicemail, so hopefully with our next pick,
Basically, this podcast's voicemail machine looks like my personal voicemail machine. No one wants to call me or talk to me, so...
But yeah, in the future, if you want to, you could always dial 1-902-418-8620 to leave a voicemail. It rings once and then... just say what you got to say. You can ask us questions. You can leave a comment. You can review the movie for yourself. You want to hear your voice on
Doesn't even have to be about the movie we're doing.
No, just talk about anything. I don't care. We'll get into it.
That's right. We'll judge you live on our podcast.
You can judge us in your message. There you go.
There you go. That'd be perfect.
We'll have a mutual reading. Yeah.
Call in and insult us. We'll play it live on the air.
And I guess while we're at it, Colton, why don't you tell them where they can find us?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not following us already, you can follow us on pretty much any social media platform at It Slays Podcast. I'd say we're most active on Instagram, but trying to get better with Twitter here lately. And if you'd like to support the show in another way, you can always head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast. Of course, we're not pressuring you to pledge anything. Keep listening to the show for free. Share it with your friends. If you can't support financially, like it, do whatever. We're fine with that as well. But yeah, if you'd want to toss $1 or $2 our way, you can always head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast.
What we do definitely need to do is, it's been a little while since I've done a little plug for the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist. Go to Spotify, follow it. I always have it playing in my car. And tonight I will be adding some music from this.
Nice.
And I also have some music from The Thing that I've got to add also.
Excellent.
I haven't looked, but I'm going to check one of these days, and there better be some Troll 2 music on there as well, or you'll be hearing about it.
Only that awesome flute solo thing they play.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's a classic.
I always have that playing in the car, windows down. That's a summer tune for me to jam to.
Oh, man.
You might want to keep your windows rolled up so people don't throw fucking tomatoes at you, okay?
I play it in my car. I drive slow around town, and I ask people if they want a meat sandwich.
Double-decker bologna sandwich. You're just slinging them out the window.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, really the only last thing is to announce our upcoming episode.
Yeah, so the next movie, it was supposed to be my pick, but I kind of chose to concede and just pick what came in second place for our listenership poll this year for the 3-year anniversary. So it's going to be Hush. Patrick left a voicemail there, I think, last episode and kind of spoiled the surprise. But yeah, we're going to be reviewing Hush for our next full episode. And I'm actually not going to be here. I'm going to head on over to their podcast, Every Horror Movie on Netflix. And I think Steven is going to take my place on this one. We're kind of doing like a swap. So, yeah, if you want to...
We're excited. It's wife swap.
Yeah.
It's wife swap. Husband swap.
For sure, yeah. So, I don't know. It'll be fun. I haven't really talked to those guys because I wasn't on the Paranormal Activity episode. So, yeah, I'm excited to be part of...
Oh, they're wonderful. They're wonderful.
Yeah, I'm excited to be part of their discussion. And I guess if the audience wants to be part of the discussion, make sure to watch Hush and leave us a voicemail or message us on Instagram or something. So that'll be our next movie, Hush.
Yeah, and you guys can't see, but Colton is sweating because I don't think he trusts me and Mike without him running this podcast correctly.
Well, I'll see. I can't wait because as a fan of the podcast before I was part of it, I'll definitely be listening to the episode for sure. But I have to say, I think the episode with me on it will be the superior Hush discussion.
I mean, maybe the gauntlet has been thrown. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Challenge accepted.
I feel it's going to go off the rails when me and Steven and Mike just get into our rants about soundtracks for Nightmare on Elm Street, even though it has nothing to do with Hush.
Well, dude.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
And on their podcast, I feel like they're just going to be grilling me for an hour about Malignant, so I might have to rewatch that before I go on.
I'm not going to lie. This could be a trap.
It could be, man.
You're walking into a trap, girl.
Oh, man.
But I think that is everything for now. As always, thank you for all the support, all the views, all the love, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Black History Month. Remember, watch some films by some black directors, some, black actors, and do that every month. Don't just do it in February.
For sure.
Period.
As always, I am Rowan.
Thanks, it's Mike.
And I'm Colton.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store. Back where it says horror videos and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
From the prime time, bitch!
Mom with the new fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
We've got to return some videotapes.